When is failure not an option? Skydiving. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is probably not your thing. Abraham Lincoln. Please stop attributing random quotes to me, Mark Twain. I regret to see the day when people create fake quotes and then look up a random name on Google and put it at the bottom. Harambe. Wise words. Harambe. Those multiple choice questions that some teachers put in Kahoots where all of the answers are correct. Time runs out. You lose. That's a valid way to lose in real life too. If you woke up this morning, you're winning. I don't want to be winning. A personal story. I had just started a new job back in 2017. Working for my boss from a previous job. The CEO/owner of that company owned several other small businesses that I didn't work for. On my way home one day my boss calls me King Cobra. The CEO's biggest company just got hit by ransomware and he needs your help. I'm on a plane to Phoenix. As the next morning, I find out that every server, even backups, had been encrypted. If I didn't succeed, hundreds of people would lose their jobs and the company would fold. Failure was not an option. Long story short, it took 3 days, gallons of coffee and Red Bull, to get everything up and running. After that, the CEO asked me to join that company as their lead person and I accepted. Yeah, you totally planted the encryption for company clout. You weren't supposed to tell anybody that. I thought that encryption was pretty solid. Mind sharing how you pulled off this fix? So we ended up having to pay the ransom. We received the decryption tool from the hackers. It's not as simple as that. We decrypted a few servers and thought everything was golden until we saw them encrypt again in real time. We found out that a user had clicked on a link in a personal email and the ransomware attached to a file share. Create a domain admin account, not really sure how they did that, and caused the ransomware to run as a service across all of the servers. We had to hunt this down, removed the admin account and services. After that, decrypting was cake. Needless to say that I made a ton of security changes when I was brought on board. When you're Gene Kranz, but have 3 astronauts stuck in space. This is what I thought of when writing the post, lol. It was such a good quote. I like the real Gene Kranz didn't actually say it, but liked it so much he wished he could have. He liked it so much that's the title he gave his book, which is an incredible read, and I will suggest to anyone who wants to read about manned space programs. Yeah, it is. It's really funny at some points. Like the story about one of the early rockets, a Redstone variant Ike, which failed a few seconds after liftoff. He described how a cameraman tried to film it rising, but lost it, and thought it has risen faster than anticipated. No, it was standing on the pad again. I was backpacking in Alaska. I was being careless, and had gotten turned around, and lost the trail. Not a huge deal, I'm pretty good at orienteering, and I had a pretty good handle on where I was. Had plenty of food and water was everywhere. I decided to freak the fuck out though, before I sat down and rationally thought that out. The world is a big place when you're all alone in the wilderness. Once I calmed down I came to the decision that I had no choice but to get my shit together and keep going or die. Worked out which way I needed to travel to hit some roads and started out. Took a couple days and working through a bunch of self-doubt. But I eventually found a road and made my way to civilization. Wow, that's amazing and kinda scary at the same time. Glad you found your way out of there eventually and can tell an awesome story. Sure is. Reminds me of Into the Wild. Fun fact, they removed the bus cause people kept dying trying to get there. So you're saying they were dying to see it? Attempted murder. If you shoot the king, you better kill him. A man gotta have a code. You come at the king, you best not miss. Whistles the farmer in the dell. I always thought it was a hunting we will go. Seems like a good fit for Oma. When typing sentences on Reddit, one typo and you're dead. You skipped the last period like a high school senior who's done with it all. I never skipped random classes during HS. Was this a thing? I did stay home sick a lot. I didn't skip classes, but I knew folks who did. I was diagnosed with cancer back in 2018. Decided that I'd fight it tooth and nail with everything I had. That didn't last very long. Man, it was tiring. I gave it my all every single day, and eventually I just got so exhausted of it that I decided I was just gonna stop. It was so emotionally, physically, and mentally tiring. So I snapped and decided that I was just gonna stop trying. It wasn't a suicidal kind of thing. I didn't want to die, but I wanted to just stop moving, stop caring, stop everything. Well, despite that, stuff kept going. Life kept on proceeding as normal. Treatment still persisted. The people around me still kept living their lives. The hospitals kept working. The children still went to Disneyland. Adults kept going to work every day. The world just kept on spinning. Time kept moving forward, and giving up wasn't going to stop that. That's when it really hit me that this wasn't something I could just quit. Even if I wanted to, giving up wouldn't make a single difference in how I felt. And it certainly wasn't going to find me peace. It was actually surprisingly comforting, knowing that, even when I hit my very lowest points, life would keep on pushing me forward, and I'd still be making some sort of progress. I learned that day not to push through my chemotherapy with everything I had, but to instead spend my time relaxing and enjoying what I had around me. I made friends with the nurses, went on frequent walks, and valued the fact that I still had my life. Cause I might not have been able to keep it for long. I accepted my reality for what it was and focused my energy on improving it in small ways. I finished treatment later that year, and even though I have terrible days, I've never considered failure an option. I can't give up, just as much as gravity can't cease working, or the earth simply can't cease orbiting the sun. It's just not on the menu. When giving up no longer becomes an option, you start immediately thinking of other ways to press forward. You start making new plans to keep going through life. You just do. It's like magic. So to answer the question, failure, giving up, is not an option for life. For me, I have a long ass quote I think you'll appreciate. She told herself that she could endure when all was well. You assumed that to suffer such a staggering blow would break you. But when such ills actually befell you, you somehow persevered. You didn't survive to prove something to anyone. You didn't press on simply because you wished to, and you didn't endure because of what the preacher in church said. You survived because deep inside everyone has the simple indefatigable need to press on, whatever the costs. And even if so much was stripped away that you no longer recognized yourself, the thing left was the part of you that you never understood, that you always underestimated, that you were always afraid to look at. You were afraid you'd need it one day and it wouldn't be there for you, but in fact was the only thing that couldn't be taken away. Apostrophe. When you have a nation dad, you can be anything you want. When you grow up, a doctor or an engineer. Apostrophe. Ah, come on. It's a bit more flexible than that. You can be a lawyer as well, if you want to, but only if you go to highest rated school in country. Oh, this applies to everything. Don't bother with a degree if it's not at best school in the country with a 2% acceptance rate. Failure to establish communication with relevant callsigns and equipment in a coal mine will result in termination. Failure to wear a seatbelt in a coal mine will be treated as a federal offense and result in a $250,000 fine, termination of employment, and incarceration. I'm sure you already know this, but for everyone who might not, coal mines are incredibly dangerous, and not one person in there can afford to fuck up, because it's literally everyone's life on the line. We had a guy who was really bad about radio communication, and he was constantly get his nuts held to the grinder over it. One day he entered a coal run without informing anyone to fix a power box. About 30 minutes later a berm broke from rain and the pee began to flood, so they ordered an evacuation of the pit. No one knew he was in there and so no one thought to look for him or make sure he knew they were evacuating. So they burned off the pit with him still inside. He was declared missing after the end of his shift when he never showed up for clock out. A week later they found his body washed up on the side of the road as they were draining water from the pit. Whenever I train a new guy, I tell them this story in order to make sure they understand the importance of radio communication. Wow. Rest in peace coal mine guy. The fucking O-rings in a space shuttle. RIP Challenger crew. Open bracket. Just space travel in general. It's either complete success or a multi-million dollar fail. Multi-million seems low. When cutting the red, blue, yellow or green wire, terrorists win. Bomb has been planted. ENEMYSPOTTED. FLRSHBRNG. Failure is always an option, just sometimes an unpleasant one. Or when it's physically impossible to fail. In that case you just fail at failing. Which means failure is always an option. But not for everything. Landing a plane. A good landing is one that you can walk away from. A great landing is one where they can reuse the plane afterwards. Landing is the art of bringing all the pieces of the airplane back to the ground in the same order you took them before the flight, without a thud. When the doctor is delivering a baby, I failed delivering my baby who came out 5 minutes after my wife hit 5. The time you get dressed and go to the medical facility, and from there it's supposed to take 10 to 20 hours for baby to arrive. Wife was on her hands and knees on our dining floor. Head was coming out. I had no idea how slippery newborns were. I was wiping up the wife's burbling mud spring of poop and had towels down. Whoosh, there goes the baby into my hands. And immediately slips out of them and drops 3 inches to the floor. I thought, great, I've been a dad for literally 2 nanoseconds and I already dropped the baby. The wife's burbling mud spring of poop that was horrifically beautiful. Giving birth. You either successfully deliver it, have a successful C-section, or you die trying and they remove the kid via C-section to see if it's alive. No matter what comes out, living or dead, you still gave birth. Even if you died during it, you can't suck the kid back in. You cannot fail at giving birth. The kid can die inside the womb and just shrivel up. They didn't say it had to be a live birth. When playing Russian roulette, it will at least be the last of your failures. You can actually survive a headshot, so I have been told. How would you survive it? Surprisingly, single headshots with handguns have only an 85% fatality rate. Hand grenades and helicopters. Next question. Flips through question cards. When you are CJ and have to follow the goddamn train, all you had to do was follow the goddamn train. When success is your only motherfucking option. I had this in my head and didn't know why. Thanks. When you have a newborn. My parents had a baby when I was 12. So naturally I got pulled into helping take care of it right away. And my initial thoughts were always along the lines of, please God, don't let me make a mistake here. I was the oldest of 7 children. So I feel your pain. Happy cake day. When you're trying to guess whether it's just a fart. If you have a uterus, you've got another chamber potentially working against you in that game of Russian roulette. Double the pleasure. Double the fun, I guess. Sure. That's one way to put it. I mean, I just farted and ruined a pair of underwear. But that's fun, I guess. When it is a beautiful day in the village and you are a horrible goose. Oh wait. That's when peace is not an option. Honk. Jonk. When pouring boiling sugar. I raise you pouring molten aluminium. I raise you a champagne glass pyramid. I fold. Peeing. If you can't pee you will probably die. That's what dialysis is for. And urites. Professions related to health. Within my family there are 2 doctors and 4 nurses, and I can say that the pressure on them all the time is brutal. My mother tells me that the simple fact that a baby's umbilical cord becomes entangled in her neck can cause permanent damage. In addition, the relatives of the patients can sue you for negligence despite the fact that most of the time they are fortuitous errors. People often forget the fragility of life. This happened to my mum in labor with me. Everything was going fine, and then I flipped up and got tangled. Facing the wrong way, etc. Had to perform an emergency C-section and the cord was wrapped twice round my neck. Luckily I got out fine. Weird thing is the exact same thing happened to my younger brother. When you're gingerly carrying something white hot from the stove atop to the table or counter and your hands are getting scalded. When you're looking for Halo's control center. CTRL plus F Halep vote. When they are trying to sack your city. You probably don't wanna live to see what happens when they sack your city. When you're an air traffic controller. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos.